Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Jill Zippin. I am the chairwoman of Democratic Jewish Outreach Pennsylvania. We are the only Jewish Democratic Political Action Committee in the state of Pennsylvania. We work to elect Democrats to statewide and to federal office. So things like governor, lieutenant governor, and Congress. Um, we elect people that best reflect both Jewish and democratic values. We are here today to talk about how to turn PA blue by following the example of Emily Gregory in Florida. Please go to our website to learn about us and other events that we have. This event tonight, we are very lucky to have it hosted by Amy Goldman. Amy Goldman has a track record of involvement with both the Jewish and Democratic community. She was a volunteer at Temple Beth El Hillel, where she was on the board of directors. She was elected to the Radnor Township School Board. Under her leadership, the Radnor Democratic School Board swept 4 election cycles. And it was the first all-Democratic school board in the history of Radnor Township in 2019, and it's been sustained ever since. Amy's commitment to good governance extends to her current role as co-founder of the Educational Leadership Consulting, where she and her business partner provide governance and leadership to coaching school boards and their superintendents. Before having children, Amy was employed as a sales account at 6ABC in Philadelphia. She's a graduate of Penn and Penn's Educational Policy Center. Take it away, Amy.
Hi, thank you, Jill, and good evening, everybody. You might be wondering, why is Amy Goldman hosting this Zoom call? I remember so clearly in 2020 when Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff were running for Senate. And a friend said to me, let's jump on this call for this Georgia Senate race. And I thought, I'm from Pennsylvania. What do I have to do with the Georgia Senate race? And I was blown away by the fact that there were hundreds of people from all across the country who had jumped on this Zoom call to lean into this critical race to find out what they could do to help support it. And lo and behold, Warnock and Ossoff ended up winning that race and flipping the Congress to Democratic. So that's why we thought maybe this would be an important evening here tonight, because as we all know, Pennsylvania is a crucial swing state. And since many of us here spend at least some time in Florida, I have to say we were incredibly inspired by Representative Gregory's win. And it wasn't just a win, she flipped Trump's district. And I thought maybe there would be something about what Representative Gregory did in her race that could apply to the needs that we have here in Pennsylvania to make sure that we do what we can, both at the state and federal level, to rein in Trump and get our Congress and our state legislature and our federal legislature back into firmly into Democratic control. So with that said, I want to welcome everybody here tonight and introduce the 3 panelists that we have. And forgive us with their very, very busy legislative schedules. They will be popping in and out, is my understanding. So we'll start off probably with Representative Gregory, and I will read her bio to you. Emily was just elected to the Florida State House of Representatives for the 87th District, which includes Donald Trump's home residence of Mar-a-Lago. Her stunning victory over her Republican opponent in a special election is remarkable, considering this district voted for Trump by 11 points in 2024, and her Republican predecessor won this seat by a 19-point margin. Emily's background is in healthcare, and she has never before held elective office. Coming along in a bit will also be Pennsylvania's Lieutenant Governor, who's Austin Davis. In 2022, Lieutenant Governor Davis was elected alongside Governor Josh Shapiro as Pennsylvania's 35th Lieutenant Governor, becoming both the first African-American Lieutenant Governor in state history and the youngest sitting Lieutenant Governor in the nation. He grew up in Western Pennsylvania, where he saw firsthand the challenges facing working families and industrial communities. From an early age, he knew he wanted to dedicate his life to public service and building safer, stronger communities. He is running for re-election alongside Governor Shapiro this fall to continue delivering results and moving Pennsylvania forward. And last but certainly not least, we will be joined tonight by Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. Madeline is a Montgomery County native and has spent her life and career serving the public. In 2018, Congresswoman Dean was elected to Congress representing Pennsylvania's 4th congressional district. She currently serves on the House Appropriations Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee, having previously served on the House Judiciary Committee and the House Financial Services Committee. Now in her 4th term representing Pennsylvania, Congresswoman Dean continues working to strengthen families, improve public safety, and protect communities across Pennsylvania and the country. So with that, I'd like to jump into some questions, if I may. And Representative Gregory, welcome. You're first up. And I can't help but ask you, what possessed you to run for this high-profile seat?
It's so good to be with you all. Thank you all so much for having me. Yeah, I, for the last several years, had felt that the priorities of state and national politics weren't reflecting my values. They weren't reflecting my neighbors' values. And when I really drilled down to what was having the greatest impact on myself and my family, I realized it was the State House. In Florida, we have a really crazy universal voucher program that is pulling monies out of public schools and incentivizing homeschools, for-profit charters, all kinds of private options, and disincentivizing public schools. And I have 3 boys in public schools. So between that and all of just the affordability challenge, we have a property insurance crisis in the state. Our premium is up over 300% from where it was 6 years ago. We have healthcare that's become more expensive and less accessible. And all of these things have state level solutions. So I decided to get off the bench. You know, it's not enough to sit and hand wring. If you want the world to look different, you have to go out and make it different. So I started in my community, and it was a true grassroots campaign. It started with like my husband, myself, and 2 friends at a kitchen table, and held meet and greets, met more neighbors, slowly built our volunteer base. We had an amazing amount of volunteers, and most of them had never knocked on doors before. Most of them had never canvassed before. So this was truly organic and in response to an extremist Republican legislature that was not in line with, you know, your average Floridian. So it was very ambitious, but I thought the numbers, how quote unquote red the district looked, I thought to myself, I don't know, I talk to several hundred people every week between my small business, between my children's school. Everyone seems pretty centrist. Everyone seems pretty reasonable. I think most people just didn't realize, you know, some of the policies. They sort of assumed there were guardrails around the universal voucher program, for example. And when you explain, no, there's actually no student outcomes reported in all these other settings, but the public schools have to report student outcomes. You know, there's no there's no accommodations for children with learning differences in the homeschool charter and private environment that there is in public school. And then we talk about qualified teachers. You know, they're held to a very rigorous standard in the public schools, and there are really no guardrails at all in the private environment. And when you talk to your neighbors and you explain it, I mean, that's, you know, pretty shocking, and it's not fair. So really just by going and talking to as many neighbors, and my unofficial campaign slogan became EDD, every damn door. Go, if you don't know what to do, go knock a door. Go talk to a constituent in District 87. And on the flip side, EDD, raise every damn dollar, because a lot of Republican money, like $3 million, was poured into this. This is a trophy speech, so they did not want to lose it. But we raised enough. We raised about $500,000, so at about 1 to 5, 1 to 6 ratio, we were able to communicate our message, and we're on the right side of the issues. So EDD, every damn door, every damn dollar.
That's retail politics. When I ran for office, I was given the same exact advice and found that the more doors that you hit, the better your chances are of winning. So I totally get that. Now, you were talking about your messaging, Representative Gregory. How did you sort of synchronize traditional Democratic messaging with what you needed for your particular community, or was there not an ability to synchronize? Like, how did you really figure out what it was that was going to resonate with voters? And what was the feedback you were getting to let you know that you were being successful in reaching those voters? And of course, we're going to try to apply that here in Pennsylvania in a bit, but give us a little insight into that if you don't mind.
That's such a good question. And I went into it with an idea of the issues as to what my family was struggling with. And I will say that the top three issues of education and healthcare and property insurance. I was just in Tallahassee 2 days ago, and we are putting on the ballot gutting property taxes, which is not the issue, it's property insurance. Those were my three issues that I went into it. And I will say, as the more and more conversations I had, I saw a little bit more nuance in some of the issues. And I also realized that my personal number one issue is education, public education, but it's not the number one issue. I heard it a lot, but the number one issue I heard at the doors, knocking, talking to voters, was property insurance. So I took that feedback in and I reoriented, where my number one priority was, because that's what I heard number one was property insurance, and then healthcare, and then education. I'll also say, there was a few places where I found some nuance. So while property insurance is the real crisis, and we're just giving gifts to the insurance company at the expense of the policyholder, there are areas where targeted property tax relief makes sense. And I hadn't realized how many would-be first-time buyers were unable to enter the market, because when you combine the insurance plus the taxes, that can be greater than the note. So there are things just by listening. Again, the key is talking to as many voters as you can, and really keeping your ears and your heart open, not assuming that my exact experience is the same as everyone else's. You have to listen. So I shifted some of the priorities, and I expanded my view based on the feedback that I got from voters. And that's my advice to especially down ballot candidates, is to really be specific to your community. So property insurance is the number one issue we hear in coastal Palm Beach County, but I'm not sure about Western Pennsylvania. I mean, you really find that out by your lived experience combined with talking to several hundred and then several thousand of your neighbors. And then that sort of helps shape your message. You have an idea going into it, but you really need to stay responsive to what you hear.
Right. And so that all makes perfect sense. And because most of the people who are on the call probably are not candidates, they could be canvassers potentially. How would you, if they were your candidate or they're canvassing for another candidate, what would you recommend that they do if they knock on a door? The first thing they should say, because I know that canvassing can be off-putting to some people, yet we all need canvassers to help us get our message out and help folks like you win and in Pennsylvania. So if you were a canvassing coach, what would you say that people on this call should think about as they knock on a door, let's say, or talk to a neighbor or anything to initiate the conversation and get that data that you're talking about that informs the pitches that they make to help sell the candidate?
That's such a great question. And I will admit that I had only canvassed sporadically, here and there, congressional race here. We had Amendment 4, which was our reproductive health ballot initiative. So I was not a super experienced canvasser. And the first time you go out, it feels awkward. It feels crazy to go knock on someone's door. But being really you're just normal self. There's not, very, very rarely is anyone very rude at the doors. I mean, they either don't answer or they're after you sort of quick back and forth, then the more comfortable you are, the more natural the conversation is. And then, I always encourage in our script to ask, what's the number one issue, your family is dealing with. And I think it's so key, and I really try to weave in to as many of our launches and our canvases, is make it fun, right? It's so generous of someone to give their Saturday to you. And I'm always so grateful. So we try to have snacks or games or contests. And And it's just, you meet the best people. I have, women. I have my neighbor, Mary, who's like 89. She's out there every week. She is just a gangster. We have a whole bunch of college kids that are just got out of school that want to be engaged. So you meet the best people doing the work. And for any operation, I think just weave as much like playfulness and fun, play music, because it's what you're doing. You're just out there talking to neighbors. And I'll also say this. So during the special election, there was some heaviness in the country, right? There was the 2 deaths in Minnesota. I started the Iran war. And after the death of Alex Preddy, I came home. I just had a great day canvassing. And I see my husband, and he's like, oh, there's been another murder in Minnesota. And I was just deflated. I was so excited, had such a great day, and just like, oh God, it is so bad out there. But then the next day, we had a Saturday, Sunday canvass, put my sneakers back on, went back out for 2 more hours, knocking doors. And I felt better. Like, action is the antidote. You will feel better. You are affecting change. This is the only way to change the world is to show up and do the work. You can never skip the part where you do the work. So if you are nervous about canvassing, I encourage you to find a candidate that aligns with your values. It really is fun. You get steps in, usually snacks.
And if you happen to canvass in the rain, people especially take mercy on you for your candidate.
Exactly.
So
you show up with a wet rat.
Yes. So stand by. I just want to check with our panelists to find out here if Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis has joined the webinar at this point or not. Do we know that? Because we can certainly ask you additional questions. It looks like Congresswoman Dean should be joining by phone any second. We'll watch for her to come in. They're working on getting those folks in. So Emily, I'm going to just continue to monopolize your time, but then maybe cut you off a little bit. You'll forgive me because we do want to try to we do want to try to keep the folks not too long. So you've won the seat. I can't help but wonder, what was the reaction like? Like, did you get a certain sensation in the legislature when here you show up having won Trump's district? And by the way, there are people on this call I know who are putting out yard signs for you. So some of your supporters, you want to give a little shout out, are actually on this call. There was a real buzz in our Florida community from people on the day that your election results came out who were just hooping and hollering and super excited. So I just want to put that into the mix. But so now you've won this election. What did it feel like when you got to work?
So on the very night, it felt pretty surreal. I felt good about where we were during the day of the Republican number was really climbing. So we got nervous in the afternoon. I was very nervous. And then I just decided to just lean back in, believe in myself. I was actually live on CNN when my husband and my cousin in the front row of our car started like shaking and vibrating. And I was just like I was on the phone just pretending like, I think I just won. So it was very exciting. I think I know that hundreds of people around the country just felt so joyous and hopeful, and I'm very honored to be a vessel for that, because we need that. It's been a hard couple of years, and we need to remember that people are good and there is hope. I would be remiss if I didn't plug. I do have to run again in November, which is a huge challenge. It's just at an event where the incoming speaker, the Republican speaker, said the seat is a huge priority and he wants to take it back. So if anyone wants to stick it to Donald Trump at any point, if you go on EmilyGregoryForFlorida.com, you can make a donation and just give him a little stick.
Well, you'll stay in touch with us. I know Congresswoman Dean has just joined by phone, but yes, we will certainly make sure that you get another chance to make a plug for that. We know there was the special election, obviously, and another election comes behind that, but super inspiring stories. Thank you for sharing all of that. Stand by. Congresswoman Dean, you've joined by phone.
Hello, Amy. Hello, Jill. And congratulations, State Representative Emily. And I think is Austin also with us, the Lieutenant Governor. also joining us. I apologize for being so late. I was, I don't know, the gremlins of tech were after me. But I'm delighted to join. And I did just hear just a moment of what you said, Emily. And we do need that joy. I hope you felt it from Pennsylvania. When you won, we were celebrating because of your win, because of how you won, because of why you ran, and how you defeated numbers that people would not have guessed you would have been able to do. So congratulations. Happy to be with you. Amy, if you have a question. Otherwise, I do have to warn you, I got to run to a vote, but we've got some good things we're voting on here this week.
Wonderful. And we won't keep you, but I mean, Emily's given us her super inspiring story so far. We'll catch you up on that later. But for the folks who are on the call, because they don't necessarily all hail from Pennsylvania, and if the technology were set up such that they could identify which states they're from, could you succinctly explain, Congresswoman Dean, why Pennsylvania is so important and why people from around the country should have their eyes and energies focused on helping Pennsylvania's election cycle, this midterms?
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. And I thank you for that question. And just like all of you, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just like all of you who paid attention to Emily's extraordinary win, that is a bellwether for what's to come. And I believe that Pennsylvania, historically we were known as the Keystone State. We were the colony in the middle that held the 13 together. We will be the Keystone State again, historically, this go-round. Because, as Amy knows and Jill is doing, we're all doing the exact same thing, we have the chance to flip 4 or 5 or more congressional seats right in Pennsylvania, within the Commonwealth. It is not going to be easy, but we have excellent candidates. We're doing it the old-fashioned way, working hard and making sure that excellent candidates are lifted. And so we want to unseat Scott Perry with Janelle Stelzen. We want to unseat Mackenzie, one-termer with whom I served in the Pennsylvania House, with Bob Brooks, who just won his primary. We want to unseat Brejnahan, the stock trading freshman, with the Scranton mayor, Paige Cognetti, who's terrific, and then Bob Harvey, county commissioner of Bucks County, running against Fitzpatrick. I want to lift up one more name that some of you may be paying attention to. Rachel Wallace is running in the Muser seat. So in Pennsylvania alone, we could pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seats. I'll go for as many as we can, because in Pennsylvania, we do see people focused on the very things that Emily focused on: costs, groceries, gas, goods, utilities. It's just too expensive to live in the neighborhoods that we've all lived in. The cost of insurance, the emphasis on working families over politically connected folks who are just focused on gaining power and political influence, not to mention corruption and the grift. So Pennsylvania is the one to watch. And importantly, Pennsylvania is the one to work for, because we have a problem. We have a problem of presidential elections, huge numbers of Democrats and Republicans and independents turn out. I believe we will appeal not just to Democrats, we will appeal across the board with these excellent candidates. But we have a drop-off in the midterms. We cannot let that happen in Pennsylvania. And I know Jill's working hard so that does not happen, and everybody else is too.
So, Congresswoman Dean, what I said initially before you got on the call was that in 2020, I remember so clearly being invited by a friend to join a call that was to raise awareness of the race, the Senate races of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. And I thought, what does a girl from Pennsylvania have to do with Georgia? But okay, I'll join the call. And I was blown away by how many people from Georgia to Pennsylvania to Hawaii were on the call. And the idea was that every one of us, regardless of whether or not we were from Georgia, could help. And sure enough, Warnock and Ossoff won their Senate races and flipped Congress. To me, this is the same opportunity we have now. Whether you're from Florida, New York, Chicago, Rhode Island, where Pennsylvania, wherever you're from, how can we all come together to help make sure that Pennsylvania's legislature, that the House of Representatives flips in November?
Well, I remember those days also, and I remember coming back in 2021 and greeting those two new senators. Sadly, it was during impeachment too. But the excitement of the difference that was made and the attention that was paid nationwide. And Emily just did this. People are paying attention. They are hungry for civic engagement and decent people running. People who just want to uphold the Constitution, the rule of law, and they want to make it better. They want to call out the lies and the corruption. So my whole fear is there will not be enough engagement. But I'm hoping, because of all the work of DJOP and so many others, that there will be plenty of engagement. And to your point, exactly, even if you're not from Pennsylvania or any of these districts, talk to your friends who happen to be in these districts. But even if you contribute $1, $2, $3 to these races, just to be engaged, it will make a tremendous difference.
And it's not out of the question for people to come in. I mean, even for the last go round of in 2024, when we were trying to get Kamala elected, there were busloads of people who were coming down from New York for the day. I picked up my dear friend who lived there at Amtrak and brought her in, and we canvassed all over a neighborhood we were assigned to. So there are so many different ways, but I just wanted to emphasize for the folks on the call just how pivotal Pennsylvania is. If we pick up how many seats, Congresswoman Dean, if we're able to flip how many seats?
I want to flip 5, but if we get 3, we could change the majority.
Right.
But we're working for 3, 4, 5.
Right.
And Pennsylvania could do it alone, and that wasn't through gerrymandering. That's a whole nother bag of cats and stuff we have to deal with. Pennsylvania can do it the old-fashioned way. To your point, Amy, also, for people on the call, come here. Come to Pennsylvania. I'm in D.C., so come to Pennsylvania. I remember for my campaign, Jamie Raskin brought busloads of folks from Maryland because he felt confident in his own race. He had volunteers come up busloads and come out and knock doors. We also had busloads from Virginia. We had busloads from New York, just as you said. It makes a difference. And I talked to these people from these, in these buses. I said, why did you come here? They said, because we want to make a difference. We know what our vote looks like in Maryland. We're in a good place for voting for people who we want to win, and they will win. But we want to make a difference in places where it's not so easy.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you one last question, if I may. Do I have you for a couple more minutes, Congresswoman Dean?
You got me 4 minutes.
Okay.
I don't want to miss this vote. It's about
No.
Ukraine
Lieutenant Governor Davis was called into a budget meeting. He's not with us, but since you served in the state legislature, I'm sure you know what the landscape is of those races in Pennsylvania and what the stakes are for Pennsylvania legislature and retaining Josh Shapiro as our governor. Could you speak to that briefly?
Oh, I'd be delighted. I served 6.5 years in the Pennsylvania House in the seat that was Josh Shapiro's. I succeeded him when he went on to county government before Attorney General and now our governor. For those who don't know, and many of you do, Pennsylvania's majority, I was there always deeply in the minority as a Democrat. We have a 1-seat majority. What a difference in the Pennsylvania House a single seat means. It means we have Joanna McClinton, first woman, an African-American woman, Speaker of the House. But it means something legislatively as well. So right as I'm working alongside these congressional candidates, I'm also working to make sure that we don't just maintain the 1-seat majority, but we grow that. Then, as you well know, Amy, we have the Senate, PA State Senate. I forget the number, but I think we're 3 seats off. We could get the majority there. And as Josh Shapiro, who is extraordinarily successful and popular, runs for re-election, we're going to get a big lift and boost him as much as we can. Let's get him a bigger majority in the House, and let's get him the state Senate. And he can spend 2 years with a trifecta, making a difference legislatively for everyday Pennsylvanians, their families, and their kids' schools.
I'll add in that Pennsylvania has a $7.25 minimum wage right now. Okay. So
Oh,
we are,
God.
I
Yep.
mean, that is on like at the very top of the list. If Governor Shapiro gets a Democratic Senate and the House maintains its even one seat or more Democratic majority, we can afford people a much better living wage than $7.25. It's shameful and it's long overdue to be fixed. So that if that resonates with anybody, lean in and help us as far as our state elections are going this November as well. So I want to let you go.
I'm going to run.
Yes.
I got
Thank
to
you.
go vote. And everybody on the line, we did a War Powers resolution. I'm very proud of that.
Yes.
And tonight we're voting on Ukraine, support
Wonderful.
for Ukraine, which we are shamefully behind on.
Yes. Thank you so much for your service and your everything else good that comes out of Congresswoman Dean's office and effort. So thank you so much for joining the call tonight. I'm going to wish you well and turn back to Representative Gregory because I've got another question for you, if you don't mind. I'm fascinated.
And Representative Gregory, I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you so much.
I think you'd
Happy
get
voting.
along.
Matt.
You two would get along
Take care.
fabulously. You should connect after the call.
We
Thank you
will.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so Representative Gregory, this is fascinating and disturbing at the same time. So I want to get your thoughts on this. According to a recent New York Times Siena poll, 43% of voters are dissatisfied with both political parties. And just 26% of voters are satisfied with the Democratic Party, as opposed to the 33% with the Republican Party. These are not ideal circumstances for Democrats. But you still have been able to get people, you are a Democrat that got overwhelmingly elected on a very difficult landscape. So what is the most effective way to, whether it's in your district or any other district, to overcome this disenfranchisement, this disenchantment that voters have, and get them engaged and try to get them on the side of Democrats in particular?
So, Amy, what worked for me was I have found, and I think many of us have found, the partisan nature of politics in the last, you can go back 20, 30 years, but in the last, let's call it 10, it's just very hard to stomach and lean in. And I feel like a lot of people, myself included, until more recently, have just taken a step back because it doesn't feel good. With algorithms, with 24-hour news channels, there's just two echo chambers and we're not really hearing each other. So whenever anyone at the doors, at a community event, brought up the president, I would just, acknowledge and then pivot to a state level issue, pivot to something that is tangible, that is within the scope of the State House. So the State House is in charge of so many things, like we talked about, public education, how we compensate all of our state employees, teachers, fire, all of that, in charge of our property insurance, whether we regulate industries or not, healthcare, list goes on and on. But many things are outside the scope. So the president's outside the scope. Foreign policy, like the vote the Congresswoman is taking, outside the scope. So whenever this conversation left my lane, I just turned us back into the lane. And I think it's really, really important, in one, stay in your lane, and two is lower the temperature. I think it's really critical we try to hear each other. If you have a different worldview than I do, I can still hear you. And someone said something recently to me that really stuck. It's, you have to be going into conversations with someone who has a different worldview with you. It's not the enemy. If someone's really, really focused and their number one issue is safe borders, they're not a racist. If someone I am 100% pro-choice, always have been, always will be. But if someone isn't, they're not an evil person. So we have to be listening to each other and not trying to demonize each other. Because I will tell you, in a red district like mine, Trump won by 10.5 points. A lot of Republicans had to vote for me. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 5 Republicans voted for me because there's just more of them in District 87 than there are Democrats. it's roughly 40% Republican, 30% Democratic, and 30% NPA. And because of this massive influx of cash, every Republican in the district got like 28 pieces of mail. So every Republican knew there was a special election. I did not have that budget. Maybe I had no idea what the percentage of Democrats in the district that knew there was a special election, but it wasn't much, like half. We had a very targeted universe. So I think lowering the temperature and trying to respect someone if they have a different worldview, and find where you guys have commonalities and where do you both, we will all do better if property insurance is lower. We will all do better if healthcare is more affordable and more accessible. And we will all do better with strong public schools. I mean, that is how you grow the middle class. And when you keep it focused on the things that we can all agree on, I think you can draw a lot of people over from independents and even Republicans.
So as you were talking to voters, what kind okay, as you were talking to voters, what signal did you get as you were talking to them where you thought to yourself, wow, this is resonating. I'm landing this voter. Like what kind of feedback or body language or what did you get where you knew that your message was landing well?
So specifically at the doors with the special election, because it was a special, our universe was a lot of Democrats, right? It was like really your super voters. So people were just thrilled at the doors. I mean, knocking doors in the special election in like February in Florida, it was like 70 degrees. Everything was beautiful. Everyone is just so receptive to your message. It's now in the general where we are knocking a primarily independent, no party affiliation universe. The expectation is that everyone knows there's a midterm. All the Democrats are going to vote for me. So now I'm doing a lot more persuasion. And so that's more of, I think, the question you're asking, because if you're just talking to like super voter Democrats,
right,
they're just psyched that like a viable candidate is like doing this thing. And they're like, you're like, really knocking my door? I'm like, yeah, I'm really knocking your door. So they were very receptive. But in this universe, I think what's really landing is it's just how much everyone's struggling. The list has just grown. Like $4 gas. People were already having trouble, saving for a vacation. They were already having trouble making ends meet. And you really see that across a lot of income levels. So I think it's really resonating when you have a policy solution, having accountability across educational environments, a state catastrophic fund, where the state self-insures, where Medicaid expansion, which would insure over 1 million Floridians tomorrow. We were the #1 utilizer of ACA tax plans. So with those tax credits expiring, a Democratic governor, which I don't think is completely outside the realm of possible. We have a very strong candidate. We could have Medicaid expansion and a backfill of those ACA tax credits like some blue states have done. And when you have those policy solutions, it really clicks. Like, I want more affordable healthcare. Who doesn't?
Right. So I'm going to ask you 2 other quick questions and then we're going to wrap up. But one of them is I'm also really fascinated by the young voter. And I'm wondering if, with all that you've been talking about how you approached your voters, did you have to carve out a special message for that, Gen Z, 18 to 25, 25, 29 voter who's having maybe a different lived experience from the average voter whose door you were not knocking on? Did you run into those kind of voters, and what did you do? Because they are among also the ones who are particularly disenchanted with this two-party system, it seems.
I do think that is a problem in a lot of areas, especially among, as I understand it, young men. I think there's been like a lot of manosphere, a lot of toxic masculinity modeled, a lot of just isolation in that generation. The college that is in the district is FAU Honors College. So like it's a really leaned in academic crew. So like I had amazing canvassers from FAU Honors College, and I think it was not representative of the general college age. But I do think that's going to be a challenge in the next several cycles, is re-engaging, or we'll get engaging for the first time, an under 25-year-old and making them care.
Right. Okay. And so this is the big question. Based on your success, if you were called to a meeting with the National Democratic Party leadership. What would you say to them to help them be successful based on your experience locally? How can that be parlayed nationally if you were the consultant going in to give them advice?
Well, I don't know
You
that
don't
I'm
like that question, right?
totally equipped. Oh, I think we should just save the party this way. Maybe just EDD, every damn door, every damn dollar. I know fundraising is a challenge. They've got to figure it out. We have to figure out how to get the message across, right? Because a voter contact, that's all the dollars if you're spending it wisely, which not everyone does, but we did. And I hope that larger entities do. But that's just buying any more voter contact. So in order to permeate your message, because in many races like mine, the Republicans will have much more, I do think we have to figure out the fundraising at a national level, re-inspire some national donors, and then build all the infrastructure at the local level, like the 140 canvassers that we trained for the first time in District 87. I think isn't that just the fundamentals of campaigning, is going back to blocking and tackling. So that's my advice, just do the work.
And for messaging, because you did such a good job with messaging, if you could succinctly give the national parties some advice based on your experience, because your messaging really was so effective, what would you say?
I say, to the extent you can, keep it granular and specific to your community and as a brand in general. I think we exist to grow the middle class. The Democrats exist to grow the middle class. And I think that we say a lot of other things, and that at the core is what I think the Democratic Party stands for.
Great. Okay. Well, we're a few minutes before 8 o'clock, and it's just been fascinating talking to you. Again, we have like a rock star for those of us who spent some time in Florida. It was like this Emily Gregory person on Yard Signs won. So we're just so thrilled that we were able to meet you this way for this call. And unfortunately, like I said, we weren't able to connect with Lieutenant Governor Davis, but budget meetings our budget has to be passed by law in Pennsylvania by June 30th. So I understand why he's so busy at the moment. And of course, then we had Congresswoman Dean on, who is always fabulous and can cover both the state and federal landscape pretty effectively, having served in both spaces. So want to thank you so much for joining the call. And I also want to thank all of the people who joined the call tonight. I apologize on behalf of DJOP for any of the technical issues that got our meeting off to a little bit of a later start than we anticipated. These conversations matter because they remind us that change doesn't happen by accident. It happens when people show up and organize and stay engaged, no matter what state you're from. So I hope that if what you heard inspired you tonight, those of you who are on the call, I encourage you not to let the momentum stop here. Get involved, volunteer, talk to your neighbors and friends, and support candidates who will fight for our communities and for our democracy. We also encourage you to check out DJOP, which stands for Democratic Jewish Outreach of Pennsylvania, the organization that sponsored tonight's Zoom and is working tirelessly to flip these key House seats from red to blue. DJOP is the only Democratic political action committee in Pennsylvania dedicated to electing Democrats who support Jewish values. You don't have to be Jewish to engage with DJOP, or you don't have to be Jewish for DJOP to support you. It's one big happy family. So check out their website, djop.org, get on their mailing list and support their efforts. It's nice to have one place that can help you channel your energies and efforts in the right way, and DJOP does a good job of that. For those of you who are in the Philadelphia area, there is a fundraising event next week in Haverford for Paige Cognetti and Janelle Stetson, who was a former TV broadcaster, on June 15th. Those details are on the DJOP website. Those are some of the seats we're talking about that need to be flipped in order to get our house back. This work takes all of us, our time, our voices, and our support. So please stay connected, stay active, and help build the coalition we need to win. Thank you, everyone, from wherever you hail, again, for being on this Zoom tonight. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you at another event soon. Thanks so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.